Good afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving weekend, everybody. The book review that we're going to do here is Born Again in Brazil, The Pentecostal Boom and Pathogens of Poverty by Andrew Chesnut. I found this very interesting. I'm familiar with the Pentecostal church, but not its relationship to Brazil. So this was an interesting read for me, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. The author is Andrew Chesnut. He is a specialist on modern religious history in Brazil and Mexico. He is by occupation a professor at the University of Houston who earned his PhD from UCLA. He is also the author of Competitive Spirits, Latin America's New Religious Economy. Next, I would like to talk about the setting of the book. Now, it could have been done in Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. There is a lot about the Pentecostal boom that takes place there, but Chesnut focuses instead on Belém, which is a northern city in the state of Pará, where Pentecostalism first began in Brazil. The religion was brought to Brazil from Los Angeles, where it originated, and the arrival of Pentecostalism in Belém is in the year 1910. Now, Pentecostalism in Brazil is second only to Catholicism in membership. Pentecostalism is not alone. In the late 20th century, all different kinds of evangelical Protestantism has swept throughout Latin America, but it was Brazil especially where, as we mentioned earlier, the Roman Catholic Church is still number one, but the Pentecostal Church has been gaining ground on the Catholics. It also competes with the Afro-Brazilian religion of Umbanda. Pentecostalism avows materialism, which appeals to those in poverty. It is attracted to those who can afford health care because of the concept of divine healing. Most Brazilian Pentecostals are members of the Assemblies of God Church, but Chesnut also gets into other smaller churches, and some of them are more controversial. A couple of the are on the screen now, although I'm not going to make you listen to me butcher the pronunciations. The book has 3 sections, and we're going to go into all of them in detail, but I just want to give you a brief overview now. The first section is The Spirit of Brazil. The second one is called Exorcising the Demons of Poverty, and the third is Church as Institution. In the first section, Chesnut talks about Pentecostals' international origins. Like we had talked about earlier, it had developed originally in Los Angeles and was brought to Brazil in 1910. He also talks about the fast development of Pentecostalism within Brazil. In the second section, he gets more into factors including poverty that led to this fast development. He also talks about the waves of Pentecostalism. Waves he uses as another term for like generations. The first one, the traditional, the second, modern, and then the third, postmodern. The second section, Chesnut titles Exorcising the Demons of Poverty. He gets into the phenomenon of conversion, which is the method by which you become a member of the Pentecostal church. Also, the phenomenon of physical and psychological healing. A big part of the Pentecostal church is the belief that through your connection to God, you can be healed. Like we had talked about earlier, about why this has a particular appeal to the poor. He also talks about the concepts of congregational life, how the congregation serves as your community within the church, and then the pathogens of poverty, which include domestic violence and alcoholism. Section 3 is entitled Church as Institution. This is mainly talking about the Assemblies of God Church, which is the giant of Brazilian Pentecostal churches. In this section, Chesnut looks at the denominational infrastructure and also at political activism. As the church, Pentecostal church, grows in Brazil, so does its influence over government, particularly among the nation's conservatives. In my review of the journal articles about this book, one of the main things that Chesnut is complimented for is the way that his work gives a voice to the poor. He doesn't tell this story as an outsider. Instead, he lets the impoverished members of the congregation of Bellum speak for themselves through interview. One of the areas for which Chesnut receives criticism is for the way that he oversimplifies. At one point in the book, he writes that in the late 20th century, Pentecostalism stands out as one of the principal organizations for the poor. I don't know that I agree with that, but I will say that you can tell by reading the book that he takes one geographic area and tries to apply it to what is a really, really large country. And it may be necessary, just because it's too big of a story to tell otherwise, but I felt like that stuck out. Chesnut conducted field research in the early 1990s, and this book is a result of that field research. Conducted many, many interviews in the northern Brazilian state of Para, and really went through in great detail the historical archives of the Assemblies of God denomination, which are kept in Rio. Here is a brief look at my references. Again, thank you for your attention in this, and I hope everyone enjoys their weekend.